ICE must get out of Minnesota now?
Well, if democracy means anything at all, it means that this administration must be allowed to carry out the agenda the American people voted for.
What's up, patriots? Welcome back. You just saw that clip of Bernie Sanders, and honestly, it's the same message he's been pushing for years. But today's video is something different. We're watching Senator Eric Schmitt from Missouri step in and respond directly. And he doesn't just push back, he tears apart the entire argument. He challenges what he sees as a growing socialist shift inside the Democrat Party. I wanted to cover this because the country feels divided right now. On one side, leaders like Bernie Sanders argue that law enforcement agencies are out of control and that strict border policies are wrong. On the other side, leaders like Eric Schmitt say the rule of law matters, borders matter, and national sovereignty matters. In this clip, Schmitt explains what he believes democracy really means, and he argues it's very different from what the left is promoting. Let's break it down.
Federal agents shooting American citizens down in cold blood, breaking down doors to arrest people, or sending 5-year-olds to detention centers, all in clear violation of our Constitution. That is what takes place in dictatorships, in authoritarian societies, where there is not a rule of law. It does not and it must not be allowed to take place in the United States or any democracy on earth. So let me be very clear. ICE must get out of Minnesota now. ICE must get out of Maine now. ICE must stop terrorizing the American people.
The senator from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we hear a lot of talk from the other side about democracy. Well, if democracy means anything at all, it means that this administration must be allowed to carry out the agenda the American people voted for. Enforcing our immigration laws, securing the border, and deporting immigrants who are here illegally. This is not a new concept, by the way. Democrat presidents for the last 20 years have done this. But the other side never had any intention of letting this happen. President Trump moved forward with his agenda. They were never going to let us enforce our immigration laws against those who had broken them. Why is that? Well, because mass migration is not just one policy preference among many for today's Democrat Party. It is the policy priority, the fundamental organizing principle of their entire agenda. It is the foundation of their platform and the final end of their worldview. Not one single Democrat has called on leftists in the streets to stop impeding law enforcement with their cars or to stop physically attacking law enforcement. Not a single one. They have zero interest in lowering the temperature. At this point, it's so obvious it almost feels silly to say. In Minnesota and here in D.C., Democrats are actively and intentionally adding fuel to the fire. The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, has claimed his city is invaded, under siege, occupied. The lieutenant governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan, declared that our neighbors are being disappeared. It's just called kidnapping, and publicly called upon Americans to put your body on the line and not go silently into the night. The governor, Tim Walz, compared the ICE presence in Minnesota to a Nazi occupation and likened residents of Minneapolis to Anne Frank. On Monday, Walz published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal declaring that the Trump administration's assault on Minnesota is a campaign of organized brutality against the people of our state. Just last week, he stood behind the metal gates of the governor's mansion with a bullhorn and told the crowd of protesters outside to go and cause trouble. These aren't unique examples. They are par for the course. Over the last month, we've heard similar things from just about every powerful Democrat in this country. I don't know what's in each and every one of their hearts. I don't know that. I don't know if they really believe that we're at war or that ICE is the Gestapo, or that Minneapolis is under Nazi occupation. But whether or not they believe it, many of the people who hear them and listening to them do. And now, many of those people are taking these ideas to their final logical conclusion. And that's exactly what the people in power on the left actually want. They want the confrontations. They want the chaos. They want their conscious political strategy. That's what this is. Their conscious political strategy. They have decided that leaning in and ratcheting this up as far as it can go serves their political and ideological interests. So they're all in. And by the way, might I just point out, they're about ready to shut the government down again. They shut it down the first time because they wanted health care for illegal immigrants. Now they're willing to shut the government down, including FEMA funding and TSA funding, because they want to stop deportations of illegal immigrants. It is a single organizing principle of their party right now. Think about that for a moment. Really sit with this. Think about what it says about the kinds of people we're dealing with at this point. In a better era of American politics, we used to say things like, we all want what is best for the country. We just have different ideas about how to get there. When you hear statements like the ones that I just rattled off, it seems harder and harder to believe that right now.
That was a serious reality check. In just a few minutes, Eric Schmitt laid out a clear response to Bernie Sanders and his claims. Here's why it stood out. First, Bernie Sanders described ICE as if it were some kind of rogue force, accusing agents of extreme wrongdoing. Those are strong accusations. Critics argue that this kind of language is meant to create anger toward immigration enforcement and build support for looser border policies. Then Schmitt responded. He focused on one core idea: democratic legitimacy. His point was simple. Voters elect leaders to enforce the laws already on the books. If Americans vote for border security and immigration laws, then carrying them out isn't authoritarian. In his view, that's democracy in action. He also pointed out what he sees as a shift in the Democratic Party. In the past, even Democratic presidents supported strong borders. Now, he argues, parts of the modern left treat mass migration as acceptable or even desirable. According to Schmitt, that approach could change the country in major ways. One of the most intense moments came when Schmitt criticized comparisons made by some Minnesota leaders, comparing ICE to Nazis and illegal immigrants to Anne Frank. He said those comparisons are offensive, disrespect history, and ignore the experiences of legal immigrants who followed the rules. Schmitt also accused the left of using confrontation as a political strategy. He argued they are willing to create government standoffs, even over funding for agencies like FEMA or TSA, in order to protect undocumented immigrants. By the end, Bernie Sanders appeared frustrated as Schmitt continued laying out his argument. Now the question is for you. Do you agree with Eric Schmitt? What do you think about Bernie Sanders' claims about ICE? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you care about this debate over America's future, make sure to like and subscribe for more breakdowns.